Hey Computer, play About Bees podcast.
Hey, welcome everybody. We're going to be talking about bees, culture, and curiosity over the next little while. This is our so-called pilot episode in which Bidzina and I will introduce ourselves, we'll tell each other a little bit about our backgrounds, and we're bee focused, but we're not going to be exclusively bees. We're going to focus on also a lot of other insects and small animals, talk a little bit about what's going on in the world, and see how these things are related to ecology and to human culture too. So I'm Ron Miksha, and
my name is Bidzina Mosiashvili, and I'm a student here at Mount Royal University, going fourth year of my bachelor's degree in marketing. And we would like to acknowledge, just before that we move on, that this Mount Royal University is built on the traditional lands of the First Nations of Canada. And we honor and appreciate this gesture that they've given us. Thank you.
Yes, we certainly do appreciate it, and we appreciate being here at the new Mount Royal University and its library here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Yes.
And home of Treaty 5 peoples. And as I was told by Chief Crowchild, who is at Tsuut'ina Nation, that the treaty includes a settler people as well as the native people, and it's a treaty, and right. We're all under it. So we appreciate
Treaty 5 or Treaty 7.
Treaty 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Maybe I said 5. But yeah, but you're right. It's Treaty 7 is where we are. Boy, I don't even know where we are. That's not very good, is it? Anyway, let's get on. And what we wanted to do today, as I had mentioned, was to introduce this podcast, to give people a bit of a flavor of what kinds of things we're going to be talking about and how we're going to be stumbling over a lot of things like I just did. But Bidzina, let's start with you. And for people who are watching this as a vidcast, we're going to have a few slides, not very many, but a few pictures to look at. And for those of you who are driving through the night with a truckload of bees and can only listen, we're going to try to describe any pictures that come up, and we're going to try to make this mostly a verbal podcast. But we're starting with an image, and it is a picture of, let's see, I've got to get this thing set up here. Sorry, folks. It's a picture that Bidzina supplied, and I have no idea what's going on here.
Yes, so I'll describe the picture here. So it's a horse and a carriage, and there's my dad sitting on the horse with what looks like kind of like a cowboy hat, but I'm not exactly sure what it is. But then there's me beside him. I'm 4 years old, so this must have been 2003, and I have a red cap on.
And this is downtown Calgary, isn't it?
This is downtown Calgary. We just finished a rodeo, and it was Stampede.
No, where was this? Seriously, you have a picture here of a horse-drawn wagon with your father and you that was taken about 20 years ago or so.
Yes.
And it certainly looks somewhere in Europe.
Yes, so this is pictures taken in Georgia. I was born in Georgia.
The country of Georgia?
The country of Georgia, and specifically where this picture is taken, it's about half an hour away from a city called Tel Aviv, in a village called Gulgula.
Okay. Those are really interesting things to try to say.
Right.
as is your name.
Bidzina, but I'm the only one in my family with a unique name. They all got, like, my dad's name's George.
Okay, George.
My mom's Catherine. But anyways, so the city is Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv, not Tel Aviv,
yeah.
Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv.
And and then the village is about half an hour away. It has a population of 300 people. Gulgula.
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 Yeah, Google that, folks. You'll find it.
And pretty much it means heart of heart.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Like center of the heart.
So that's where you were born.
That's where I was, not in the village. I was born in the city.
But okay.
Our home is in the village.
Yes.
And there, at the time, this is 2003, most recent kind of historical event for Georgia at the time was 1992. the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Oh, yes.
91 for the rest of the world, 92 for Georgia.
Okay.
Because we were still clinging on to it. Well,
All right.
people were the
People in power.
powers that be.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, 1992 collapses, and there's people. 75% of the country doesn't have electricity, doesn't have running water, and let alone the villages. So I'm talking about the cities. And so this, what me and my dad are doing here, there's about 1 kilometer from where we live. There's a center well for everybody in the village to go and collect water, and we would go in horse and carriage to collect water to bring back home to use for drinking, for whatever, pretty much everyday life. And this was done every 2 weeks or once every week. And everybody did this. And this was 2003.
Yeah.
We fled the country, and then we came to Canada.
You fled the country. You left.
We fled.
Yeah, through.
We went to Turkey,
which is close to Georgia.
We're neighbors with Georgia. We're neighbors with Turkey. Yeah.
Okay, so you just had to cross a border.
We had to cross the border, pretty much, yes. And then we seeked asylum, and my aunt lived in Calgary.
Oh, okay.
And she brought us here.
Okay, so she was already established in Calgary.
Yes. Her husband is a priest, my uncle, and he would do missions around the world, and they settled in Calgary eventually.
Yeah. What, I hope you don't mind me asking, but I'm sure everybody's thinking in the back of their head, what kind of a priest would this be?
It's Georgian Orthodox, but it's very similar to Greek Orthodox.
Okay,
Christian.
Yeah, we know that.
Yes, Greek Orthodox Christian.
Yeah. So you keep Wednesday as the holy day, right?
No.
Just kidding.
We still do Sunday.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I know. Okay, so
I was like, did I miss something? And
No, you're okay. So, family of how many people?
I have at the time before we came to Canada, it was 4 of us, 2 brothers, 2 sisters, mom and dad, and then my grandma.
Yes.
So 7, and then my younger sister was born here. So there's 5 in total now. So I have 3 sisters and 1 older brother, 1 younger, 2 older sisters.
Wow.
And my oldest sister is 37.
Oh, yeah.
And my youngest sister is 13, and I'm 26. So
okay.
You guys do the math.
You guys are spread out there quite a bit.
Yeah, a little bit. All from the same parent.
Yeah, that's unusual. Something like my family, though, which we'll get to here shortly. But there were 10 children in my family, and there's also about a 20-year spread, like what you've just described. So you got here, you settled in, you're studying, you're doing you're finishing your degree now, your first degree in business
of business administration.
Yes,
a bachelor's of business administrations, and it's marketing is my major.
Okay.
Marketing data analytics.
Wow, and data analytics.
Yeah, that's what I come from a finance background, and data is always And if you're a marketer, you have to data.
Right.
You have to analyze it. Sorry.
Yep, of course you have to. And
everybody, right.
And your family established a what kind of a business? And it's a construction type business.
So we're all there. My brother is in the construction business now. We built a couple of warehouses in BC and a couple major. Actually, the 4 Points Sheraton Hotel by the airport.
Yes.
Every single window and tile that was installed there, it was done by us.
Wow.
But where we've built like a 40,000 square foot warehouse in like span of like 3 months, 20,000 square foot.
So you're fast, but are you any good?
Well, it was those big warehouses. They were modular warehouses, so they were a little quicker. But then my other cousin also has a very successful window installing. Yeah, they install windows.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah. That's a really nice success story for people who had to leave a country that was basically falling apart and get out and end up here. We're happy to have you here. And now with all of your intellect, your background, your education, business, and so on, how on earth did you decide to do stuff with bees? Because I mean, that's kind of like, yeah, bees are cool, but you're not. Well, you might get rich keeping bees.
So it all started from the foundation of homesteading. That was being a homesteader and having my own resources of food.
Okay.
And relying on the land.
Okay, why?
So I watched a movie called. Before I talk about that, when I was younger, I watched a movie called Dancing with the Wolves.
Yeah, I love that one. Is that Kevin Costner?
Kevin Costner, that's right. VHS.
Yeah,
I watched
of course.
Original VHS in my parents' room by myself because those movies I wasn't allowed to watch. But yeah.
Yeah, so you snuck.
I snuck it in and I watched that movie, and I don't know. Even though he dealt with so much pain and suffering living off the land, I fell in love with kind of that lifestyle.
Idea. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then fast forward way later, and I watched the movie Into the Wild. There's also a book about it.
Okay.
I think actually a teacher recommended to me in grade 11.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a movie, and it's about a very successful university student or high school graduation student who's getting a scholarship to Harvard, and he decides to give it up to live into the wild. It's about a true story, and he ends up dying eating a poisonous potato in Alaska.
Oh, I don't know. And your teacher thought that would be a good book to kind of inspire you?
Well,
is that teacher still working? Are they still in the public system?
Mr. Dixon, I believe his name was.
Well, we won't hold anything against Mr. Dixon.
No, but that was it was like a movie that it was like an assignment that we had to do.
Yeah.
That we're like, hey,
I see.
This is be careful with the decisions you make.
Yeah.
So I saw that, and then I actually thought, I'm like,
can you say that again?
Into the Wild.
No.
So, but be careful with the decisions you make and you give up. And realizing he could have went to Harvard, done his thing, and then went to the forest. He didn't have to do that.
Right. Although
that's kind of,
if he went to Harvard, I doubt that they would have told him what kind of potatoes are going to be poisonous.
He might have been smarter by then, though.
He might have been smarter. He'd been a little bit older.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right? And he ate a poisonous potato because he was starving.
Oh, that's sad.
And he didn't plan for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is really sad. What a sad story. So
it is sad. It's a true story. It came. Sorry.
Yeah. Let's move on then.
But spoilers alert. Now that I say all that.
Yeah. Don't. Well, nobody's going to want to see.
It's been out like 15
it
years now. So whatever.
After what you said, what I said, I don't think anybody's going to want to read that one. But let's talk a little bit about what you're doing with your bees then.
Yeah. So all those movies combined and these inspirations of homesteading and living off the land. How do I do it as a city boy and not having access to any farmland? And pretty much the bee was the closest thing to it. But at that time, I didn't when I had these aspirations, this was around 2016, I didn't even know how to go about it. So it just never really touched. And then also at the same time, there's another documentary, Bert's Buzz, where he's very unique. Yeah, the whole company. So then I'm interesting. So I showed that documentary to a friend that I met in Lethbridge.
Yes.
When I was studying there for criminal justice, and he got hooked on that documentary. Fast forward 2 years later, we're both back in Calgary, and he's like, "Hey, I have a crazy business idea. You're starting your business degree. Can you help me out?" I'm like, sure. We sit down, and he hands me a 200-page report from the government of Alberta, where the first page is, Alberta is the beekeeping capital of Canada.
You bet it is.
And then he follows it up with, my grandpa has 4,000 acres of land that needs pollinating.
Ooh. Wow. Okay, now you're drooling.
Well, exactly. And I'm like, okay, I see the potential. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, I can kill two birds with one stone. I'm homesteading. I'm farming. I'm like, overnight, I'm a farmer now.
Yeah.
And I have access to 4,000 acres of land. And he said he doesn't have access to all the 4,000, but eventually, in the will or something, he has access to a little portion, and we can do whatever we want on that little portion. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, this is perfect. And that's what spurred the beekeeping. This was 2019. November is when we had this conversation.
Okay, so leading up to that, one of the inspirations was the movie Bert's
Buzz was kind of the nail in the coffin.
And I'll just really quickly summarize for people who don't know who Bert is. But anyone who's seen the products, Bert's Bees products like lip balm and medicines and so on that are produced from the hive, they should know that Bert was a real person. Yes. And he was originally a photographer living in New York City, and he did what you're thinking of doing. He got away. He went up to the state of Maine, built a small log cabin to live in, and he decided to earn a little bit of income, just for those things that you absolutely have to purchase with money,
right,
by selling honey.
Yes.
And
off the side of this house, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and off the side of the road, and some young lady stops by to buy some honey off of him. And they eventually fell in love, lived together for 15 years or so, and she really inspired and pushed and built the company. And he remained somewhat like he was never really interested in money, isn't that right?
No, he was not.
Yeah.
In fact, they had a divorce in the end, and she took the financial wing, or like pretty much took over the company, but he was allowed to get royalties because he was the brand.
Right.
She wanted to keep him as the brand,
which was fair. Now, and as we said, money was not a motivator for him.
In the end, you think about it, I'm like, who wins, her or him?
Yeah, right? He got to live the way he wanted to.
And he has his face plastered all over everywhere.
I don't know if that's such a good thing. I sure wouldn't want people to have to look at my face plastered all over.
They actually recently took it off.
Oh, they did?
It's not his face. It just says Bert's Bees.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, that was your inspiration, and I can see that does really link well, because here was a person who gave up what could have been a successful city career and moved to a rural area, and just by happenstance, it built into a huge multi-million-dollar business eventually. So now coming back to where you are, you've got a friend who watched this same movie the documentary. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're now it's November 2019. We have that conversation. We make the order for 50 beehives.
50 complete hives?
Yeah, nukes.
Okay.
Nukes in January.
All right. Not to be delivered in January. You made the order in January.
We made the order in January. And then we're like, we'll worry about the equipment later. Lo and behold, 3 months later, COVID hits in March. We can't bring our supplies in from China. We can't house the bees. We have to go down to 24 beehives, buy the equipment locally. Then my partner finds out he's allergic to bees. The grandpa's allergic to bees. The girlfriend's allergic to bees. They don't want the bees on the property anymore.
The 4,000 acres.
Yeah, the 4,000 acres, right. And we have to go now talk to one of his cousins that let him borrow one of your vacant lands where we can put the bees. And the bees are starting to die. I'm getting stung. It's really backbreaking work. And fast forward 3 years later, and those 24 colonies, I'm down to 2.
Oh.
And at that point, I was about to give up. Those 2, I overwintered. And they came out of 2024 winter. Both of them were so strong. One of them was so strong, I split into 6.
Oh, wow.
Now I have 8. I'm back to 8.
Yeah.
And out of the 8, 5 are producing honey, and this might be the strongest year so far.
Wow.
But that's kind of been the journey.
Yeah. So what would you do differently if you were going to do this whole thing? Like, let's say that your goal is you want to be a commercial beekeeper eventually, don't you? Or at least to own a commercial outfit.
I want to do something like commercial beekeeping.
Yeah. So what would you do differently from how you got started?
I wouldn't do it in foremost Alberta. I wouldn't do it anywhere that's 1 hour out of my vicinity.
Okay, so how long was the truck ride from Calgary to foremost Alberta?
3 hours.
Ooh, yeah, that's a long drive.
It's a long drive, and once you leave Lethbridge, there's nothing for an hour.
Oh.
So if you need something from the department store, good luck hoping for the local mechanic shop to be open.
Oh my goodness! Then you'd really have to run a long ways if something broke down or
Yeah.
you needed something.
Yeah. Actually, my extractor thing. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And just for people who are listening elsewhere in the world, Alberta is just north of the states of Montana and North Dakota in the United States. So we're in the western part of Canada.
Right.
And Calgary is a big city, almost 1.5 million people. And you wouldn't be able to keep 50 hives of bees very easily inside the city of Calgary. So you've got to have somewhere outside of town.
That's exactly where we kind of had the confidence to do that many hives for as rookies. We're like, who could we harm? The only person that's going to get stung is us.
Right.
And I guess that's what the grandparents were worried about is like, we got killer bees. Like these kids don't know what they're doing. They're just bringing these 50 colonies on our property.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, yeah. Obviously, you didn't know what you were doing.
No, we didn't know.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding there, Bidzina.
But we didn't know what we're doing. But the stinging should be the least of everyone's worries.
Right.
Honestly,
Right.
I don't really know why. There's
Yeah. Okay.
More coconuts kill people than bee stings.
Do they really?
Yeah.
You mean just like lounging
Falling
underneath
coconuts.
a palm tree and a coconut falls on your head?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's 40 reported like bee sting deaths a year in the U.S. or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think there's like way more coconut deaths.
Yeah. Well, okay. Maybe they were eating spoiled coconut.
No, it falls on their head.
Falls on their head.
Falls
Okay,
on their-
I'm just looking for a way out for this because it just doesn't seem realistic.
The
But
falling coconut?
yeah, falling coconuts killing people.
What? I'll show.
Okay,
Falling
you're going to look it up.
I'll give you the exact numbers.
Okay.
Falling coconut deaths per year. 150 people die each year worldwide.
Wow.
Okay, that's worldwide.
That's worldwide, but
So maybe less than-
I would say with the United States population, being about maybe 5% of the world population, so you'd multiply by 20 the number of bee stings. That'd be about 800, maybe 1,000 people die around the world from bee stings.
And they're probably allergic.
Yeah, most likely because to get to die from bee stings, if you're not allergic, you need massive amounts of stings, and that does happen. It has happened to a few people.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So
Okay.
that was kind of
Okay. So one thing you do differently is
have it closer.
have it closer, and for most Alberta, that's in the middle of like a nectar desert. There really isn't a lot around there. There might be some irrigated alfalfa or sweet clover in the valleys or something, but not too many flowers for the bees in that area.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No, not
Okay.
Well, like it wasn't too bad because it was irrigated.
Yeah.
And there was actually where we were, there was a stream of water constantly.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like running through.
All right. So you weren't in the desert part of Alberta. Yep. Then
There were a bunch of snakes. They were telling me they were don't camp here. There's snakes. I think they were just trying to get me to not camp there.
Yeah, that might be, but I know that there are, and what we're talking about there for the snakes is there is the western prairie rattlesnake. Yeah, the prairie rattlers. I used to see them in southern Saskatchewan, which wasn't too far from where you were.
Right.
When I'd pick up a beehive, there were several times over a period of about 15 years. There were several times when I'd pick up a colony of bees to move it, and there'd be a rattlesnake coiled up underneath it. So they do live in the area.
Oh, they love underneath the beehives.
Yeah,
Nice and warm.
nice and warm, shaded, and yeah. All right, so that's one of the things you would do differently if you had, and you are making a second go of it now. You're doing.
Well, yeah, pretty much, but I don't think it'll be a while before I ramp up to that many.
But you're ramping up slowly, and I think that's what we tell most people. If you want to get going with bees, usually you don't want a big outfit. You don't want to invest a lot of your money all at once. You want to kind of see how things go.
Yeah. Well, the way we looked at it is it's like a time, as much as it is a money investment, it's a time investment. So if we're taking care of one beehive, why don't we just take care of 50 beehives?
Good point. But then you can make a mistake with one hive or 50 mistakes all at once. Same
and
mistake
also
times
if
50.
you have the infestation level. one of them's high infestation level of mites, it's just going to spread to all the other ones.
Yeah, obviously that's quite a problem to deal with. So now you're keeping 5 hives of bees that are doing well, and 3
8,
others.
But 5, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then my other new friend joined me, and he has 8 hives himself as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So combined, you guys have got 16 colonies.
Yes.
Yeah. Sounds like you're going to go somewhere with this now, and you've got 4 or 5 years of practical experience with the bees.
I would say I have like 3 years.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. That's one thing I like about what we're doing here as a podcast is that I've been keeping bees since I was a little kid on the farm, and that was at least 60 years ago.
Right.
And so I have a different perspective, but I lose track of the thrill and the interest and the new ideas that young people like you come up with, and I really like that. And at the same time, I have, I don't want to sound cynical at all. I hope I don't ever come across that way. But I've seen so many mistakes made over and over again by people. And, and we're all learning. And I'm still learning. I still make mistakes. So obviously, I make a lot of mistakes with my bees, even now. But that, I think, combined, that's something we can bring to people. We can bring, like, different perspectives on keeping bees. But I also want our audience to know we're not going to be limited 100% to honeybees. We're involved in a lot of other kinds of bees and interested in their survival. And I know that you told me once some time ago that one of the motivators that really attracted you to the idea of bees is they live in social colonies. And when you were young, it was ants that inspired you.
Yeah, so actually my obsession with bugs don't stem from bees. I actually never really thought about them. They were kind of a girly bug to me.
Oh, thank you.
To be honest with you, they're females, lo and behold.
Okay.
But I always found them to be kind of like a girly bug.
Okay,
I'm more interested
just
in
for
ants.
those people out there,
yeah, they're all females. 99% of the population.
No, that's not the part I'm concerned about. I'm concerned that you are using what could be considered a derogatory term there, girly bees.
Well, no, I meant as in feminine.
Yeah. Okay. So well, I guess
something more oriented towards yeah.
Okay, so historically, beekeepers were women in the old days, and then for the last couple of 100 years, the field had been dominated by male beekeepers, and they were the high testosterone, aggressive. Let's keep 10,000 hives of bees and really push the business end of things.
Right.
And now lately, we're finding that probably a majority of beekeepers are female again. And
a lot of female club members,
and they bring in a really good perspective.
Yeah,
and they kind of make us stop and think and look.
Yeah.
So anyhow, we'll certainly we'll do our best to get more than one perspective for these girly insects that we've been talking about.
But anyways, yeah. So my fascination with bugs come from like ants, and spiders, and scorpions, and because I always loved something that can dish out way above its weight class. Those things always fascinate me.
So it's not enough that honeybees can kill people.
I don't know. I never.
I mean, that's okay. Okay.
It was okay. Anyway, so when I was 7 years old, now this is in Turkey, while we're waiting to come to Canada.
Yeah.
We're in the city, and there's this field beside us that's not used for anything, and there's a sidewalk beside the field that's kind of all jankied up and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's brushes.
Oh, hey, there's a new word, jankied up.
Yeah.
Like I had to look that one up. I didn't know what janky was. It's apparently urban slang now for being messed up. No, I don't use that word. I'm too old for jankying around. But yeah. So this yard was jankied up.
It was sidewalk, and then there's like bushes and these those tall grasses that grow kind of, but they're pointy, and very fibrous.
Yeah.
And so I see a line of ants going in one direction and a line of ants going in another direction. And one of the ants are carrying these white little, what I thought to be grain of rice.
Yeah.
And carrying it this way into a hole, and the other ants are going empty-handed out of the hole back into the other direction. So I follow the line, and they're going inside of a bush, the tall grass, not the bush. And I open up the tall grass, and what do I see? This bunch of eggs have been laid there. They're being brought up by other ants, and they're being carried out to another area. And you know how the concrete wasn't poured properly, so it just poured on dirt.
Yeah.
And so underneath is all dirt once you get underneath the crack.
Well, sure.
So it's a perfect location for that.
Yeah, I had lots of cement jobs like that on my farm at one time. Yeah.
Right. So you imagine they're in a concrete dirt build.
Sure. Gotcha.
So they love it. Yeah. So when I saw that, I was fascinated, and I looked at them, and I'm like, how they're intelligent, and they have this ability to coordinate, and I saw them as humans pretty much, and I'm like, is this what we are to God? Are we ants to God? Is that that's kind of how I thought.
Yeah, as a 7-year-old.
As a 7-year-old, yeah, because I was always like, I grew up religious, and they're always talking about it, and George is always religious, and God's always talked about this, and who is this mysterious God figure, and you always imagine him as this big guy in the sky.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
no, that's fair. Okay, that's how you grew up, and this is what you're looking at, and God would be looking down at the 7-year-old and what he's been doing.
So I'm like, am I God, or what's going on here, But well, no, I don't know if I was thinking that, but it was probably some sort of form of going. So there was this weird perspective that So I don't know. I think that it's interesting because it's just because we don't want to hurt insects. Do they have feelings? Do they not have feelings? I don't know.
Well, we're going to actually eventually talk about that on some of our future episodes about feelings and insects and so on. And I kind of lean towards agreeing with you that they probably do have
consciousness.
That's consciousness. Yeah. That's the word.
Yeah.
Well, so they kind of inspired you to start thinking about these things, including girly bees.
Well, I could go on another ant story. I actually have, but there was a show, kids TV show. Now I'm in Canada, CBC.
Okay. Yeah.
This is a Canadian broadcast channel. They had a show on there, and it was this puppet monkey, and these two brothers. I forgot what it was called. I don't know. Someone could figure it out. But anyway, they had an episode where one of the brothers shrunk down, and he pretended to be an ant. And they put a camera inside of an anthill. Oh. And he was pretending he was a little ant. But then I was like, what would it be to be an ant size?
Yeah.
I've always wanted to be ant size, actually. And then there's...
Compared to God, you are.
Are we?
I don't know. You answer that for me.
George Stuart Little?
Yes.
That one's another one where I'm fascinated. Because think about it. If you shrunk down, how much more fascinating is the world?
Yeah.
Just doing a stroll in the grass.
Yeah.
And then there's Bug's Life, and then there's Ant Bully. That one's another good
Absolutely. Yeah. So remarkable world out there that most of us just tramp on without even looking down.
It's way more fascinating than ours.
Yeah.
We only get to experience that in forests.
Right.
But we're constantly just looking up in space.
Yeah.
Just open air space just into the clouds. But can you imagine the perspective of the clouds when you're looking at it from underneath giant flowers of rose bushes?
Yeah.
It's
fantastic. Well, you got into the bees, and it sounds like it's something you're going to stay with for a while. Tell me what's going on here. We're looking at another photograph. In this one, it looks like you are making a grab for the camera person. I don't know what you're doing there. That you're dressed up as a beekeeper.
Yeah, I'm in BC right now, so I've moved my bees.
That's British Columbia.
Yeah, British Columbia. I moved them to there from Alberta because I was working there, and I had to finish my work up, and the bees needed me, so I took the bees to my work.
Yeah.
As any sane person would do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So now we're in BC, and this is in a person that rents his property out. So he has a bunch of different items on his land, and this was a Volkswagen Beetle, one that the owner used for spare parts. And in the sea can, there's an exact replica of this, the blue and white Volkswagen van, that it's better condition. And I don't know, he told me some story where it's like really rare, this specific model.
Okay.
And the guy has like both somehow.
Okay.
Yeah, but I've seen these around everywhere. They're probably not that.
Well, don't know. It might be something special about. Maybe that was the one that John Lennon drove when he was visiting Canada.
Maybe.
Something special about it.
But it was really cool. I really loved the atmosphere. There was an organic farm right beside me. Hazelnut trees growing, and was the first time I witnessed hazelnut pollen. It's brought in March.
Yeah, out there in British Columbia.
And they were bringing in pollen in March, and I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I guess that's why they get the early brood.
They do. They get the early brood, and some of our packages and some of our nukes and queens come out of British Columbia, not as early as March. They don't have consistently good enough weather for mating that early.
Right.
But
it was snow, exactly. It was snowing at the time when they were bringing in pollen.
Amazing.
I mean, there was snow on the ground.
Yeah. That's absolutely amazing.
But anyways, should we go to the next picture here?
No, this is the last one now.
Okay, last one. But so let's go into a little bit of your story.
Oh, my story. Okay, it's tedious because I'm old. There's so much more. But I grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania, which is in the United States, about halfway between Chicago and New York is where the farm was, north of Pittsburgh a ways. And I have a photograph up here for those of you who are just listening. You've got a little Ronnie, that's me, with my best friend. And so the two of us, the best friend is a dog. And we're sitting...
What's the dog's name?
I don't remember anymore. Yeah. I have best friends even now, and I can't remember their names.
No, I call all the dogs Rocky.
Rocky?
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been Rocky. No, that wasn't the name that we would have...
Chester?
That could have been Chester.
Oh, looks like a little Chester.
Yeah, maybe Ginger.
Ginger?
I actually don't remember. Sorry. But the interesting thing about this picture is I'm on the family farm in a big field, and there's some little bit of light construction going on behind me because my family was always involved in building something or another. But even further behind me, along the edge of our property line where there are a row of trees, there is actually a group of honeybee colonies, like maybe 40 or 50 there in the photograph. And those honeybee colonies then belong to the family, and they were something that I learned to work with and enjoy from the time I was just a little kid. My very first memory of bees was that we had a small shop where we extracted probably close to 100 barrels of honey in a good year, right. Which is unusually good for that part of the world. Western Pennsylvania is not known for good honey production. The average might be 60 pounds per hive, but we had quite a few colonies. Anyhow, my first memory was opening up a door that my mother was on the other side of, and I was probably 4 or 5 years old. And she was processing the honey. She was extracting in this hot room.
Your early memories?
That's an early memory, but the really thing that helped me remember it so well, even after all these years, I can still picture the door and my mother standing there on the other side, and she was yelling, "Don't come in, don't come in, don't come in." And I came on in, because I wasn't sure, if I'm not supposed to come in, maybe I better find out why. So I came in, and bees had clustered on the top of the door. And there were probably, when you're processing honey, there are always a few bees kind of flying around. They came in on the combs when the honey was removed from the hives, and they settled on the door. The door had a window near the top, and there were probably 2,000 or 3,000 bees that came tumbling down on top of me, in my hair, down my back, in my clothing. And, of course, I got stung quite a few times.
Did you cry?
I don't think I did. I don't remember that. I think I might have been too shocked to cry.
Right.
And ever since, I've really enjoyed getting stung. And it might be, that residual memory of just, my mother working on the farm. And so I get stung, and it just brings back that really great memory. Anyhow, grew up on a farm. We had bees. When I was about 16 years of age, the family had progressed beyond honeybees into greenhouse work, and we built a large number of commercial greenhouses to sell plants and materials. My father said he didn't have the time to take care of the bees. But since I was 16 and I had a driver's license and we were down to 300 colonies of bees, a couple of my older brothers had inherited or bought or removed some of the other colonies. So we had 300 hives of bees in maybe 15 locations, all within an hour's drive of the home, the farm. And he said, "Why don't you take care of the bees?" And he advised me. He told me what's going on. My older brothers were already living off the farm; they had grown up, and I did, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the independence. I enjoyed working with the bees. I just, it was just absolutely great.
Is that you up in all these pictures?
Yeah, now we're looking at some pictures beyond me as a child.
You got a full head of hair there.
Man, I had a head of hair, didn't I? Yeah.
You look like Terry Fox a little bit.
Do I? Well, that's a compliment. Terry Fox was a really cool guy, and we would be about the same age, actually. So he's
I'm
my
just
generation.
I'm like, is that Terry Fox?
Yeah, no, these are all photographs of me. And what we're looking at there are pictures that were taken in Florida, because one of my older brothers, the oldest one actually, his name is David, he moved to Florida to keep bees and to raise queens to sell.
Right.
And he has a very big, very successful honey farm, queen breeding business, and that's what he does. So I worked for him to learn about raising queens and to become a slightly better beekeeper.
He's still doing that now?
Yeah, he just turned 80 a few days ago, and his sons and family members are running the farm in Florida.
Wow.
Oh, they make. I probably will get the numbers wrong, but the last I remember maybe was roughly 100,000 queen cells a year that he would sell, and then maybe 10 or 20,000 caged queens that he would ship and sell. So that's a big queen farm.
We can get queens from Florida here in Alberta?
No, we can't get them up here.
Those are because they're kind of the more warmer climate bees, right?
Well, that's a whole other topic, and we will get into that at some point. But basically, there's a border between the United States and Canada, and there are some things that you can't ship across the line, and honeybees from Florida is one of them.
Okay, but Californian honeybees are allowed, or their queens are.
Yeah, for some really bizarre political intriguing reasons.
Some
anyhow,
intermarriage grandfather thing.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. So anyhow, we're looking at some pictures then from Florida, and I had 50 acres off in the swamps, and I kept and I bought that myself when I was about 20 years old, and bought it as I do most things. I bought it on my name and not because I had any money in the bank, but there was an elderly gentleman who had these 40 acres that were mostly swamp, but was a beautiful piece of land, and that gave me a base to keep my bees in. And then I paid the guy monthly until it was all paid off, and I did pay it off within like about 5 or 6 years. I didn't owe anything on that property in Florida. And among the photographs that people who are watching this could see is I am standing beside a truckload of supers where I was putting on boxes for bees, producing some honey off of orange blossom. And there's another photograph, a couple of photographs, maybe 3 of them, where I'm digging into beehives. And the whole purpose between all 3 of these pictures is these are mating nukes, and I was raising queen bees and looking for queens to cage and ship and sell. And then I also have a photograph here that I really kind of like. It's the only picture I have of me working inside of WWFL radio. So I was Ron on the radio every weekend and well, almost every night for 4 or 5 hours in the evening. So after I would do my bee work during the sunshiny part of the day, I would go over to the radio station and earn my $3 an hour for sitting there and spinning country music records. I liked it. It was fun, but I always had to quit every year in the spring because I would move my bees from the south to the north. I happened along...
it's all kind of one big circle, huh?
It's one big circle.
You're now doing radio talk about bees.
No, yeah, good point. Good point. We're doing a podcast about bees. And anyhow, I started taking bees to Saskatchewan, Canada. So I was American.
So that's the next chapter.
That's the next chapter.
You need to write a book.
Yeah.
Like a biography.
I should, shouldn't I? You know, if I did, I would call it Bad Beekeeping.
Bad beekeeping?
Because I was like the worst beekeeper. I really was a fumbler and made a lot of mistakes. And I think Bad Beekeeping would be a perfect name for it. I do have a book. I do have a book called Bad Beekeeping.
That's right.
Yeah, I do. Okay.
I still got to read it.
You need to read that. Yeah. Well,
I'm
you
still
don't
on
need
the
to.
ant one.
Yeah. Finish that one. Finish that ant book. Anyhow, I'm in Saskatchewan. And the reason I ended up there was because I had met a beekeeper in Florida who had an interest in a bee business located in Saskatchewan. And the guy who was running that bee business in Saskatchewan wanted to get out of it. He had something else for business in mind, and it didn't include honeybees. So he gave up the honeybees because I came along, and I worked for the guy for 1 year to learn where the locations were and how he kept bees and what he did. And then I was on my own. And by then I was 23 or 24 years old and had moved to Saskatchewan from the States to keep bees. Every summer it was bees in Saskatchewan, and every winter it was bees in Florida, raising queens in packages in Florida, hauling them up in the summer to Saskatchewan.
Because the beekeeping season in Florida stops in the summer?
It pretty much does.
Dies down a little bit.
It really does. And a lot of the big commercial beekeepers who keep bees in Florida, almost all of them will load up their bees and send them north to Minnesota, Montana, North Dakota, New York State.
That's where all the rural mites are coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They do spread when we move our bees around the country. No question about that. That's true. So in Saskatchewan, I was making huge honey crops and really enjoying it. And I did that for 12 years or so, maybe 15 years of beekeeping in Saskatchewan.
You're fishing in one of these pictures. You got is that a trout?
No, it's a northern pike.
No,
and
I don't really know my fish. I don't know.
That's in northern Saskatchewan. Well, you're not expected to. You're from Georgia.
I'm not really a fisherman. We do fish there, though.
Yeah, I'll bet. I'll bet that would be fun over there. Yeah, Georgia we didn't talk about, but it's a mountainous country. I imagine there's some high lakes here and there.
Well, we have the sea, the Black Sea.
Oh, yeah.
And at one point, the Caspian Sea was ours, too. Well, we had a coast.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So what'd you do with that? You sold it?
Iran took it over.
Oh.
It became Azerbaijan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And now it's a separate country called Azerbaijan.
Now it's It was part of the Kingdom of Georgia. There were Azari people lived there. They weren't Georgians, but it was part of our. We had a kingdom at one point that went from sea to sea.
Wow.
Yeah.
Things change. Got to get used to it, don't we? Yeah. Anyhow, beekeeping in Saskatchewan was mostly in the grasslands, and after about 12 or 15 years of that. I had a couple of dry years, didn't make much honey. I was in my mid-30s, and I decided it was time to go to university. So I did. I went to Saskatoon to earn a degree. You know what I got my degree in? Like most beekeepers, when you kind of, you've had enough beekeeping, what you normally do is you go into geophysics.
Yeah, that's right. That's a natural path for any beekeeper.
That's right. So that's what I did. I went into geophysics. And got my degree in that particular science, and then I ended up coming out to Calgary because that was the employment direction for a lot of people coming in with a geophysics degree.
There's a saying in Calgary: nobody from Calgary is from Calgary.
That's not quite true. I've got 2 kids that were born in the city. So, exactly. Although they're thinking probably of moving out of Calgary.
Right, a lot of locals in Calgary that are born here move out.
Yeah.
Because they want to see the rest of the world. But everybody's like, we've seen the rest of the world and we want to come to Calgary.
Yeah, Calgary is a great city. Calgary is fantastic.
But a lot of locals here don't, they understand that. But growing up, so much hate from students and,
Yeah, and that's really a shame. And what those people need to do is get out and see more of the world.
Yes.
And see what it's like to live in a country where you have to go miles to get a bucket full of water to use at the house.
Yes.
Calgary...
And then cut your electricity off for voting wrong person.
Right.
They did that to my dad.
They did that.
This was
before you had to move.
Before I was born.
Yeah.
Should I tell that story a little bit?
Yeah, let's hear what happened there.
So they set up power lines, and then a couple months later, they came and did a survey for who would you vote for, census or whatever. Mm-hmm. They asked my dad, who would you vote for in the last election? He said, this person. Week later, they came by and cut the line. And he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, the person that you voted against put up that line.
Ooh.
He was,
Yeah.
So they would just do very, just simple stuff like that. They're voting against. So don't tell anyone who you vote for.
Yeah.
That's a
Well, it's supposed to be a secret ballot.
It's supposed to be a secret ballot, but in communists, they don't really.
Yeah, it was communist that time, wasn't it?
But they had just recently started this election thing.
Okay.
After the collapse.
Yeah, that's right.
Mayors
in the late 90s, everything really came to an end in that part of the world. Well, no, it was the late 80s, or 92, you said, I think, was when Georgia was officially a separate country.
Belarus, Russia, Georgia, those were the last 3. Belarus and Russia actually technically are still.
Oh, well, they sure act like it. They do act like they're still together.
To Calgary. Yeah,
I'm in Calgary now, and I'm a hobby beekeeper these days. So really loving it. 2 hives of bees in the backyard. I became ill. I'm using a wheelchair. I've got some really weird disease that the doctors don't even know for sure what it is. At first, it looked like I had something called ALS, which is what Stephen Hawking was known to have. And I've had this problem for over 20 years. 30 years almost, and it's slowly debilitating. So at first I could walk, but I would stumble, and now getting weaker. And
did you ever get any symptoms of it when you were not symptoms, but did you have any sort of intuition? Hey, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, always you had.
Yeah. Even when I was a kid. Okay. Even when I was a kid, we would be putting up, let's say, drywall on the side of a building we'd be building, and I'd be the one whose arms were just shaking. I couldn't hold my hands up there; they were just weak and started to vibrate, to shake, and it made it hard for me to do a lot of stuff. I still, basically, I just pushed and challenged myself.
And your other brothers didn't have this issue?
No, nobody else in the family has it. None of my ancestors had it.
It's not a genetic thing?
Probably is. It's probably a mutation.
Some mutation.
Yeah, it's probably a mutation.
You're the first one.
Yeah. So someday there will be unfortunate people just like me, and I hope not. Not. It's a real nuisance. Yeah. But anyhow, I still get by, still enjoy life. I'm still doing a lot. I can still drive, I still work, I still have businesses, I'm still traveling around the world, and still enjoying my bees. But I can't really, I'll be honest, I cannot pick up a super off the hive of bees anymore. And I can't stand there and lean over the hive. My legs are just too weak to do that.
You can't make them too high.
No.
As high as you want them to go.
Not as high as they should be. Right. So anyhow, I get help. People do help me with that. And that's one thing.
I've been meaning to actually ask you, if you ever need help, let me know with the beekeeping. I don't mind.
I don't know, after hearing some of your stories.
I'm pretty good now. Hey, I'm doing beekeeping with no suit now.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
And they don't sting me anymore.
All right. Good.
Yeah, I use the smoker and go in there with the right mindset. I'm not getting stung anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would use the suit and the veil and the gloves when I had hundreds of colonies of bees in a location to take care of. But with just
single hive? Yeah.
No. With 2 hives in the backyard, I have not had a veil over my head in a long time.
Because one hive can rile up another hive.
Yes.
And they almost a chain reaction.
That's right.
Can happen.
That's right. That's right. People have to be really careful with that. You get one all stirred up, and then you move on to the next one and stir it up, but it's already angry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing's a mess.
Yes, it is.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So if you're doing a lot of hives, please wear a suit.
Yeah.
Don't do suit-free beekeeping.
Well,
do it at your own discretion.
Yeah, use discretion, but I think for most people who are starting out, it's really a good idea to wear the suit because then they feel more confident and more comfortable. But on the other hand, I've seen people put on the bee suit and then just attack the hives as if they were a bear. Like ripping the lids off, tossing them on the ground, and the bees are flying everywhere, but you're not getting stung.
You are a lot more careful without a suit.
That's right.
That's so
That's
true.
right.
Way more careful.
Yep. So I go in not completely barefooted. I haven't worn socks in about 5 years. I wear moccasins, and that's a whole story in itself, which I won't tell right now how I ended up in moccasins. But when I work the bees, then I've got moccasins on my feet, no shoes, and I don't wear a veil, and I don't wear gloves. And I usually have a smoker going, but not always. And I just have learned over 60 years of working around bees to be really slow and cautious and careful. One of the best beekeepers that I ever heard of and met once was Dr. Richard Taylor. Now, Richard Taylor was a philosopher. He worked at a university in the East in New York State, but he was also a keeper of 300 colonies of bees, even while he was a professor teaching philosophy. He even wrote the book on philosophy. He wrote a book called Metaphysics, and it was used for years and years as a university textbook on metaphysics. Anyhow, he said that when you're working with bees, every move that you make, every movement, every position that you take when you're working around your bees should be deliberate and thoughtful and slow. And, so you just kind of move like you're in slow motion or swimming, but you don't, you think out things in advance. You don't lift
kind of
something.
Let them know your intentions.
Right.
Like
Or at least
in the cloud almost.
That's right. Or even let yourself know your intentions.
All right.
So you have it in your mind what you're going to do, and then you're flowing. You're in the flow of beekeeping, and you're much less likely to become stung. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, in Calgary, Alberta, Canada now, the greatest city on earth, and I don't say that about every city. And what happened next then? So keeping bees is a hobby, working in geophysics and seismic work and so on. But I also decided that it was time for me to actually learn something about bees. So I went into the University of Calgary, excellent university, very good school, in the ecology department. And I had never taken courses in biology or ecology. I had studied geophysics, and I'd worked with bees. But I had this question in my mind, and I really wanted to get some sort of an answer for it. And that is, if I keep honeybees, am I causing a lot of mischief for the native bees that had been here before the honeybees arrived? So honeybees are not native to North America. They came in about 300 or 400 years ago, and they only reached the area around Calgary within about the last 100 years or so. Right. So they're really quite new. And before that, pollination was done by bumblebees and various native
butterflies.
Butterflies also.
Hummingbirds, a little bit.
A little bit of hummingbirds. We're kind of on the edge of where hummingbirds can survive, but yes. And actually, the province of Alberta has roughly 400 species of bees that are not honeybees. So 400 different sizes, colors, types of bees that have different lifestyles, live differently, and they are native here. Mm-hmm. And they had been pollinating the strawberries, the crab apples, just anything that was here originally. And I wanted to answer the question at the university, as a serious study.
Were strawberries native?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Strawberries are native here. You can look that up if you want to.
Right.
But I'm fairly certain, and I can stand corrected if I'm wrong about that. But anyhow, I began to do some research at the University of Calgary with the intention of completing a master's of science and getting a master's degree in ecology based around my studies. I had really, really good work going on. Had some fantastic students who were my helpers, so they were my arms and legs, just fantastic people. Very, very smart young people who were able to do the stuff that I couldn't do out in the field. And part of my work involved collecting pollen out of bumblebee nests and collecting pollen out of honeybee nests and comparing what type of flowers that they were working on. They were different. They were very different types of flowers. And also monitoring the number of varieties, species of types of bees inside the city and trying to get a handle on what flora we have here. And anyhow, a very big, deep, long project which has not yet ended up in a master's, even though I did the research about 3 years ago. Unfortunately, I had a heart attack during the days of COVID, and COVID slowed me down a lot. I didn't realize I was having circulation issues where, I was just tired all the time, and I didn't realize that, it's my heart. And eventually I had 3 heart attacks in one evening. And I'm still...
3 heart attacks in one evening?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The first one was at home. And then
did you know it was a heart attack?
No, I didn't. I just remember going into our family room and telling my wife that I just don't feel right. It was like chest pains around 9 o'clock in the evening, but more of a stomach ache than the chest pains.
Right. It was deep down there.
Yeah. And I said, something's wrong. I'm going to go to bed. So it was like maybe 9:30 or so. And as I was getting ready to lie down in bed, then I had another really bad episode, and I yelled for my wife, hey, come over here, I got a problem. And I wanted to just lie down and go to sleep, but she said, no, we only live like 5 minutes from a major hospital. And so she drove me there and took me in, and while they were doing a scan on me. I can't remember what kind of scan, CT, MRI, whatever it was. At that moment, I had another heart attack, and it was the worst. And it was just
the
like
electromagnetism, like probably. Well, I don't know, whatever.
Nah, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was just a third one.
Yeah. Yep. It actually happened while I was transferring. So just the motion, the work of moving,
Probably a lot of stuff was happening. You rushed to the hospital.
Yep. So a lot of things added up to a third heart attack right there at the hospital, and it was incredibly painful. And so then within hours, they had me in and ran some tubes. I don't know how much people want to know about this. But anyhow, the things you do when a person has a clogged artery, and it was actually an artery that they call the widow maker because so many people of my age would have it, and the result is you don't survive it. They were able to unplug it and put in a stent, and I'm still kind of recovering from that, although I'm way too busy. And but
and that was just after your vaccines, right? Or
yeah, I talked to the heart doctor about that, and she did not deny that there is some potential link, but she said, "How do we know you wouldn't have had that anyway?" Because
it could have just been something else that.
Yeah, just too much cholesterol. The wrong diet for the last 50 years, or it could have been a response to my vaccines for COVID.
I mean, you said it was a widowmaker. You're strong. At least you're very strong. Survived.
Very lucky that I got in.
Will of God.
Yeah. Now, just to be upfront with you, I'm not so sure there is a God, but I'm very lucky.
Okay.
Yeah, very lucky. I absolutely agree with that. And as far as the God thing, I don't know that there is, or I don't know there isn't. So I'm very open-minded to getting information.
Right.
So anyhow, here I am, surviving that and getting along. and falling in love with this research work, which brought me to know about native bees. And before that, I didn't even, I had this inkling, this idea that my beekeeping might be interfering with the livelihoods of native bees, but I didn't even know who those native bees were.
Right.
Like how do they live? What do they do? Yeah. I knew nothing. I was like zero.
You might find out that we're not interfering with them.
That's right. That's right. And actually, what I am finding out, although my research is not peer reviewed because I didn't finish my work yet, I hope that I can finish it someday when I just feel like I'm back together again and can do it. But what I have seen is that the effect of honeybees on native bees is very, very much location dependent. Mm. And here where we live in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, we are surrounded by vast acreages of commercially grown alfalfa and canola, as well as things like sweet clover that grow wild. And all of these plants, all of these flowers are excellent for honeybees. And the honeybees tend to work on those and not on the native flowers that were here. So believe it or not, and this is really a striking thing for people who have never heard this before, but dandelions, canola, that's the oil seed that they grow, alfalfa, sweet clover, the small clover, that's all of those are our main sources of honey and nectar for our bees. And all of those, this is the believe it or not part, all of those originated in Europe or North Africa and Asia Minor, like those areas.
Right.
None of those are native to North America.
None of those are native.
So in our particular case, our bees, which are also not native, prefer to work these non-native flowers. They can access the nectar much more easily, and they make tons of honey off of them, and they hardly look at the native flowers. And the native flowers are worked by the native bees. Now, if you were in England or France or somewhere like that, where honeybees are native, and you put a lot of bees in one location, then there might be more of a conflict, because in those locations, the native wild bees that are not honeybees have to compete with the honeybees because they're all working the same kind of flower. So you follow that?
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a very
because in
local.
Europe, you have places where you can find wild honeybees.
That's right. That's right.
In Canada, if you do find a wild honeybee, it's most likely from someone's apiary.
That's correct. That's right.
You can't really find wild honeybees here.
Not in Western Canada.
Not in Western Canada.
Yeah. In parts of the East, probably there are locations where wild honeybees have lived for a few hundred years. But in Europe, the honeybee that we keep here is native.
Yeah.
So it's everywhere. But when you concentrate like 80 colonies of honeybees in one spot, that's not natural. And then you will probably be putting a lot of pressure on the native bees that are not honeybees in different parts of Europe.
I see.
I don't know how clear that sounds. But anyhow, I got really interested in my work with that. I'm showing some pictures here for people who are actually watching us on YouTube or wherever. And what you can see is the insides of some bumblebee nests and some other wild native pollinators, and also some pinned bees of various species, because I had collected several thousand insects over the course of my study to see how much impact areas in Calgary with more honeybees would have on the biodiversity of the wild bees. Just all these things, and all of this also led to an experience for me as being on the board of directors of the Alberta Native Bee Council, and it is such an amazing organization. This Alberta Native Bee Council has tasked itself with trying to help protect and educate the public about our 400 different species of native bees and how important pollination is to the whole fabric of our ecology. So I'm really proud, happy to be part of that organization. So anyhow, that kind of brings us right up to date with both of us. We have been recording for about an hour now.
Yeah. We were trying to make this a half an hour, but I don't know if that's possible.
It's not possible. We're not going to edit this down any. I think we'll leave every bit of it in.
And believe it or not, I skipped through so much.
Yes, I know. I did too. But we're trying to capture an audience here. We're hoping that the people who listen to this pilot will be back to listen to our future episodes.
Yeah.
And Bidzina, what have we got stored up here over the next while?
So the viewers and the listeners are in for a little bit of a treat these next couple episodes. We have we're going to be starting out about myths and legends about beekeeping and just breaking it down of some of the big things that are being thrown out there.
Give me one. Just give a flavor.
Like, honey doesn't expire. That's I see that all over the place, and I see people, not even beekeepers, posting videos, and they're getting millions of views saying this.
Yeah, and that honey could be like as old as the ancient Egyptian tombs and
Tut.
still be just as good as when the bees.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And then we're going to be diving right into some philosophy and Tolstoy of all characters.
Yeah, Tolstoy.
Leo Tolstoy. So supposedly he was a beekeeper.
No, it's not more than supposedly. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was a beekeeper, and he caused some trouble with that and also other things. We'll be talking about that. And then there's also a lineup of famous people that are beekeepers. For example, the first ever person to climb Mount Everest, Sir Edmund Hillary.
Yes.
He was a commercial beekeeper.
He was. He wasn't just like a hobby backyard beekeeper. He had 1,400 colonies of bees in his family. Yeah, that was in New Zealand.
New Zealand, right, which is a very delicious honeycomb. Manuka is right?
Yeah, Manuka comes out of there.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, like just another couple name drops. King Charles, David Beckham, Oprah Winfrey, Patrick Stewart.
Wow.
There's also, I want to say a couple more names. But then there's, recently a movie released, The Beekeeper, Jason Statham.
Yeah, that was about one of my brothers. It was actually a documentary.
Is he part of the secret bee club?
He is, yeah. He's one of those.
Well, it's secret. I shouldn't be talking.
Yeah. And I shouldn't have probably blown his cover. Yeah. Anyway.
But those are more pop culture stuff, right? So that's more the culture.
That'll be fun.
But then we got whole end of curiosity. And then also we're going to try to, it's called About Bees, Culture and Curiosity. And I think, we're going to be going, we don't know whose culture and Ron is more culture, I would say, and I'm more curious. But I think it depends the day and the topic. Yeah. And we switch back and forth. It's Yeah. We have so much lined up, and we're also going to talk about if bees have feelings. Yes, that's right. So that's very curious, right? Do bees have feelings, and are they conscious?
Yeah. So there's a lot.
And do they feel pain?
Do they feel pain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think they do.
They must, because they dish so much out.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, you can have a small child in the house that cause a lot of pain, but
they feel pain then.
Well, yeah, that's true.
They scream with just a little pinch.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's just my own children. I could punish them and they never said a word.
Maybe we should do a broad topic of what living thing does not feel pain. Is there anything that's living that does not feel or like whatever the definition of pain is for bugs or worms
really
or
good point.
Bacteria?
Yeah.
Like, what is it actually?
Yeah.
What are they like? There must be something that feels no pain.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That is quite the topic of
character from Pain from Naruto.
Well, we want to thank everybody for taking the last hour to listen to us as we kind of discuss things about bees and with the direction of culture and curiosity. And it's been a lot of fun to work with you, Bidzina. And we'll be back again next week with some of our topics that we'll be covering. But this has been fun. Do you want to say goodbye to the folks?
Goodbye, folks, and be back next week.
Be back next week. I love it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.